Hello and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is a show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. Like and subscribe on YouTube, 5-star review on Spotify, and over on Apple Podcasts. Write a nice review about me and my incredible guest today. I have Chase Richardson. He is the CEO and co-founder at Full Pull Entertainment. Chase, how we doing today, man?
Incredible. You must be the bar must be set low if you're already giving me that introduction, Michael.
Buddy. Bar's very high. You're coming from a great place. Appreciate Bailey and all the incredible guests she shot my way. So, hey, man, you're another one on the list. It's going to be another notch to my belt of another incredible episode. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man, definitely. And look forward to chopping up with you and appreciate you bringing me on. This is exciting.
This is going to be more fun than you ever even had any idea, Chase.
Incredible fun, right?
All right, dude, you're going to have an absolute blast. Drink a couple more beers, man. I will blow you away. Don't you worry about that. But
I actually host my own podcast that involves a beer drinking every now and then. So,
well, my goodness, I guess I get an invite soon. How's that sound?
No Practice Podcast. It's the biggest podcast in the sport of truck and tractor pulling. Not to steal your intro, but
dude, this is your show.
Like, subscribe. We've had as many up to 20,000 viewers at a time watching it. So it's
yeah, man, that's awesome.
Growing, and it's a lot of nonsense and a lot of BS. Probably like most podcasts. Not calling your podcast that, but it's very educational, informative for anyone that's interested in what we call the greatest motorsport in the world that nobody knows about.
All right. I was gonna say there's a couple of cool motorsports out there, but I like that little caveat you put at the end. But no, man, I'm very excited. I know a little bit more than this sport than say, just your average run of the mill podcast. So hopefully we can have a good conversation here. But Chase, first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Why do I love sports? Well, I'm probably a sickly competitive person. A lot of people are competitive, but people that are close to me probably would tell you I have a problem at some point with it, but I don't really show it as much. And to the point of I actually had a competitive type career in sports prior to this endeavor. I was a Division I college basketball coach for 10 years, and every single day of that job, you're competing with someone for something, if it's recruiting and obviously games and so forth. So I would say I love sports because I'm just a competitive psychopath.
I appreciate the psychopath piece, but no, man, there's something about competition, right? It runs through our veins. That's just kind of what it is. It's back when we were hunting and fishing and gathering, right? You were fighting against someone else in some way, shape, or form to get what you had to get, right? You kill what you eat. So I think that part's pretty important, and it really comes and it does run deep. So I think that's pretty cool. So I do want to get into the college basketball coach, but I think this episode would probably turn into like 2.5 hours, which I'm pretty cool with, but I have some stuff to do. I'm sure you do as well. So I think it's awesome.
All night, Michael.
I love the sound of that.
As long as you can excuse me, go back to the fridge in a minute.
Yeah, no. Don't worry. We can cut that part. That's easy, man. Don't you worry. Editing, it's magical. But no, so you go from college coach, Division I college coach, to working in the truck pull industry, motorsports industry, however you want to put it, however you guys like to frame it. Like, I guess that's an interesting jump. I think, I can use that word. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how do you go from college coach, Division I college coach to, hey, I want to start this company based around a sport in truck pulling, in tractor pulling?
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of parallels to that.
No.
Path, and probably goes back to your first question a little bit, just the competitive nature of myself and my family. So, I was born at birth. I was born into the sport of truck and tractor pulling. My grandfather started doing it in his 30s, and my dad, when he was, I think he was competing in a pulling vehicle at age 11, up to this current day. I won't reveal his age, but he's an older guy and he's still doing it. So 50 plus years. Oh, I did kind of say his age, but he doesn't know what podcasts are, so he won't ever know. But yeah, so it was a family lineage that I was born into, and obviously, like a lot of things that you're brought into as a young person, you grow and create passion for it, and that passion was instilled in me as early as I can remember. And myself at I think age 12 was competing in some form of a truck pull. My dad built me a pulling truck at age 12 and was competing against 40 or 50-year-old men, at a local county fair. And alongside that life journey, I also was fortunate to be a basketball player, and had a ton of successes in my youth as a player. And then on to college, I had the goal and ambition of wanting to be a college basketball coach. To be honest with you, and it was at a young age I kind of knew that for whatever reason. But I kind of, anyone that is close to me, I've kind of had both those parallels at the same time. They have nothing to do with one another, but they are both competitive. And back to my competitive psychopath mentality, I just kind of have a deep love for them both. And truck and tractor pulling is strictly like a hobby for everyone. There are maybe a couple that can make some type of living out of it, but it's primarily a lake house or a yacht for wealthy people, or a pontoon for whoever you are. Like, you're not doing it for money like some other motorsports. So the opportunity, I was very fortunate to get into coaching at age 22, and had a good run of 10 years, very successful with a lot of great teams as a Division I coach. But at the same time, my dad and my family kept the tractor pulling stuff alive. And, I'm in a blessed situation where my family has a successful business that was always kind of a fallback plan for me. And then I also had in the back of my mind always thinking, like, how could you ever make this sport bigger? Because, I'm used to it, and anyone that I've kind of brought into it has a greater love for it. But like, there's got to be a way to make this sport cooler. And about 2018, when PASPA was repealed, I was still coaching. And it's a funny story. I can say it now. I won't reveal who he is, but a coworker of mine that was actually assistant coach with me, we were at my house having a few drinks. I think it was in late August, and watching a live stream tractor pull. It was my dad competing in it, and he brought up the idea. And as he's watching it, I'm explaining. He's like, "Dude, you should be able to bet on this. Like, why can't you bet on it?" And it's the first time it ever came to my mind. I'm like, you know what? Betting's PASPA's repealed. Like, betting's legal. Mate. What? It's a great point. Why can't you bet on it? And I'm from Kentucky originally, and being from Kentucky, I know horse racing and that sport very well, or a lot more than the average person. So started this kind of journey at the same time COVID 2020 happened, and the timing was just right for me to step away from coaching, and left on good terms. I have some of my best friends in life in coaching, some of the players I coach. I'm actually going to 2 of their weddings this summer, so the relationships were hard to walk away from, but I had no regrets about making the move I made. And now, fast forward 4 years later, I'm where I am with this amazing endeavor I'm excited to be a part of with Full Point Entertainment.
That's awesome, man. I think that's, I mean, hey, why can't you bet on it, right? Like, who the hell? Like, everything's legal now, pretty much. Kentucky especially, right? I work in the betting industry. I know how this shit works, right?
Sure.
So yeah, why can't you bet on it? I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I got for about 2 years, and we'll probably get into that later. Like, I got looked at like I was an idiot because little that I've learned in the gaming community, which there's a ton of great people, but it is a small community. Like, I haven't met many people just walked off the streets and said, "Hey, let's just make this sport bettable." But there are a lot of people and great people I've got affiliated with that's kind of made all this come to life. So
there are a couple places you can do that, and it sounds like you guys are well on your way. So it's a really that's a nice story, right? Everyone's got a story like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got a story like, "Oh, we should do this." Like, shit, you're right, we should. Okay. Well, how do you, where do you start? How do you even consider executing upon something like this? Like, it comes from a cute little idea, like, let's bet on this. Okay. Well, now you have like this full service, full circle entertainment company based out of it. Like, how does that eventually start? You leave coaching, COVID. I had a lot of time on my free hands. Like, I don't know what you were doing, right? But like, where do you start? How do you get going? And how does that momentum start to build to the point where you guys are just absolutely trucking along at this point?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it'll take up too much time to tell every piece of it. And honestly, depending on how this goes, it could almost be a movie one day because a lot of it's not believable.
That's pretty sweet.
To me, looking back on it. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing I had to my advantage probably than the average person that wanted to go try this, like whenever I was a basketball coach, recruiting was probably one of my main duties. And when you recruit for a living, you get used to being told no a lot and get looked at stupid because you're always chasing the best player you can get, and you always want the player that's probably above your level, but you got to figure out angle. It's always about angles of trying to convince that person or party to come to your school. So when you have that mentality, you get very used to getting told no. Honestly, one of my coaching mentors said, if you're getting told no 90% of the time, that means you're working hard. So to be vested in or to be converted in that mentality, I think it probably gives you an advantage in some things. And whenever I started the journey, I literally just started with cold calls and emails, and it was literally 2 years of, what is this guy? What is this sport? What are you talking about? And luckily, just like a lot of things, I would love to say that this is all because of me, but honestly, the stars were aligned to meet a couple people that were willing to listen to what I had to say and were willing to take a dive into this sport. And one door opened another, opened another. And fast forward where we are now, like we have a full blown media company and in charge of all streaming with two of the premier largest organizations in truck and tractor pulling, alongside with launching this real money, gaming app, here within the next month or so, which the sport primarily, excuse me, runs from June to the end of September, and we're looking at early June launch. So, yeah, I mean, just I would tell anybody in life, if you really believe and want to pursue something, if you get told no, don't quit, just chip away at it. And I think one of the best qualities that my parents instilled in me at a young age was just resiliency. And, this isn't done yet, but at least we've got it to this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's further along than 99.9% of people, right? A lot of them hear no enough. They just say, okay, I don't think this is a good idea. You found a couple people that would say yes, and you kept going down that path because it looks like we're going to get there, man. Yeah, so you're going to have a real money gaming app soon. As you said, you're a full-blown media company. You guys have live streams. You're already partnered with a couple companies. So one thing that's really interesting to me about, I guess, the sport of truck and tractor pull, right? Like I've seen it on ESPN, right? In like August, they'll put it on like ESPN2 at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's not like it's completely unknown, but it's such a, I'll use this word, fragmented type of sport where it's a very local, like, hey, me and the boys, we're going out, we're doing some stuff. You might know someone from a county over, right? At least that's my experience with it, where it's not like I've never seen or heard of anything on like the national scale. It's a very localized sport. How are you able to grasp that cultural lifestyle, that localized nature of this sport to bring it to people and say, hey, do you down in Georgia, do you want to bet on this race up in New Jersey, right? Like, you want to bet on this event over in Kentucky? Like, how are you guys able to start looking at it from that perspective and almost from a national level? Or am I just kind of reading into the situation wrong? You're looking at a total different way.
No, it's a very good question. And, the one thing about truck and tractor pulling, at least at the highest level, the in-person attendance factor, you look at a lot of, niche sports or non-mainstream sports, I'm not calling NASCAR or those, NASCAR is pretty mainstream, I would consider, but a lot of new up and coming sports or ones you don't hear about, they don't really have the in-person attendance like a sport like truck and tractor pulling does. At the highest level, these events, in the weekends in the summertime, I mean, the average attendance for a middle of the road event is 7,000, 7,500 people, which is like a NBA stadium in an average regular season game. Then the upper end, you have some events, 15 plus thousand people, and you have a couple events that see 20,000, one up to close to 50,000 people. So
wow,
there's something to that. And, the sport itself, like you call it in the 90s, was really probably thriving with sponsorships. Motorsports in particular, NASCAR and even NHRA are probably the best two examples. Supercross, some of this other stuff, but like it's driven by sponsorship dollars, and it's driven by companies coming in and providing resources to help expand opportunities for these groups. And truck and tractor pull in the 90s, you might remember U.S. Tobacco, like so. NASCAR premier
Winston Cup
series was called the Winston Cup, right?
Yeah.
Well, Redman chewing tobacco was they had their own circuit. They had a Copenhagen Skull circuit, and a number of competitors were sponsored by tobacco companies. And like there was more money in pulling in the 90s, like 5x, 10x to what it is now because sponsorship money, tobacco. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, give or take, whenever it was, the same time Winston got out of NASCAR, the tobacco companies had to get out. The government said no more U.S. tobacco sponsorship. So that kind of put the sport at like a standstill in terms of growing from a sponsorship standpoint. And to be honest, since then it's, the technology and the competition continue to elevate. I mean, it's some of the most marvelous technology you could ever see in anything. The amount of competitors, the competition, all that stuff is as strong as it's ever been. But it's kind of been like a stalemate in terms of its sponsorship growth and like expanded audiences. Because it takes resources to grow your audiences, right? So the fact that there's people there, butts in the seat, asses in the seat, just is what we call it. Like there's something there, but we have to bottle that up and get that message there and get sponsorships into the sport to help drive that revenue. Because I say this all the time, and I stand behind this. And anytime I've done any of these podcasts, and this is the best podcast I've ever been on, for the love of sports,
Wow.
for the record. But
Incredible.
any of them I've ever done, or anyone I've enlightened on this sport, I've never met a person. There's a barrier of entry for this sport because, like, what is pulling? What are you pulling? Like, I don't understand that. Like, motorsports is racing. Kids are racing on the playground, but like nobody's pulling something on the playground, right? So there's a barrier of entry to understand what's going on. It is a very simple sport, but once you get people past that barrier, I've yet to meet a person that just walks away saying that stuff's not cool. Like, it's not. I'm not interested in that. So, and I always challenge people, if you know somebody that ever has done that, please come get me, because I don't think that person exists. But we got to do a good job of creating that pathway to get through that barrier of entry, because at that point, once you get people in, the sport sells itself. So hope that kind of answers your question. The in-person factor of all these events, we're just trying to grow this sport digitally, and with helping bring sponsorships and just basically being messengers for it.
And so, like, everything you said totally makes sense, right? Business 101. Eyeballs bring sponsorships, brings dollars. Dollars are invested back into the sport, which then hopefully brings more eyeballs, sponsorships. It's a nice cycle,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not the first person to think of that, right? Like, so, like, what is it that you guys are doing differently that people are like, wait a second, Chase and they know what they're doing, to the point where we believe he knows what he's doing and he can grow this sport. Like, I understand the live streaming aspect of it is pretty cool, but not only are you guys trying to market the sport, you have to market yourselves, right? You have to market yourselves within that community, and then you have to try and grow that community. So what are you guys doing different that, someone, like myself can't just go start selling spot? Hey, this is the demographic. These are the people you're trying to get in front of. Let's sell them some shit. Like, here we go. Like, not to make it sound crass or boring, but like, what are you guys doing different that's really going to take this to the next level?
Yeah, if you it's a great question. Anyone can have that idea, but kind of the unique part with tractor pulling, I think I said earlier, they've been just trying to keep it afloat
Mhm.
and just do enough to make it to tomorrow. Nobody's really came in and really tried to move the needle. And when I say by moving the needle, just bring some change, and change can be hard sometimes. But, for instance, just on the streaming and pulling has been around, but the quality of the stream, I think, has been something to be desired.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's no knock. I mean, it's been the people that got it up and going are the founders and the ones that allow for these other opportunities to present themselves. But when you're trying to appeal to someone new that's coming in for the first time, you have to make it one where it's easily accessible to watch, not like priced out of this world. Nobody's going to pay $50 to go watch a live stream of a sport they don't know. So making it where it's easy to access. You got to have a good production, like personalities, obviously good video quality, storytelling, and really capture the cool part of the sport. And then lastly, and this has not been an easy thing to do by any means, because change is hard, but in this sport of truck and tractor pulling, you can go on YouTube and type in truck and tractor pulling, and there's videos with millions of views on it, like millions and hundreds of thousands. And, but it's never been really property of the competitors and the organization. And it's not anyone's fault at all, but, people don't go to a Kansas City Chiefs game and record it and put it on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they don't go to a NASCAR race or NHRA race and live stream it to YouTube. Like, that doesn't happen, because they got to control their property. So if you get on YouTube, and anyone can do this who's listening to this, just type in tractor pulling, you will see stuff with the same amount of views that NASCAR has on it, but it's been kind of an uncontrolled environment. And kind of what we're doing now is trying to control that environment, for the first time ever, and get this audience in one place to help sell to a sponsor, which we're honestly pretty confident we're going to be able to do. It's just, you know, anytime there's change, it's always hard.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we love to resist change. Path of least resistance is to just keep doing what you're doing, whether it works or not, right? So
yeah,
you're coming from a place of passion, a place of love, which I think is really important, right? You
yeah,
love this sport, you grew up with it, you want to see it succeed. And not only do you want to see it succeed for the people within the sport, but getting more people involved in the sport only makes the sport better, right? Maybe there's that kid who's 11 who never saw it before, and he watches it and says, Mom, Dad, I need a tractor.
yeah,
We're going to get a tractor, right? And that just makes the sport better. It's just an easy thing to do. And so you have these live streams. You have a couple different professional organizations. You have a lot of local, right? As I said, I go to the local 4-H fair. We go and we pet the goats. We look at the sheep, and then we go and watch the tractor pull. It's $5 to get in. Everyone's happy. We have a good time. And you're talking about the personalities too. I feel like this is a sport that has some personalities, right? A couple dudes in mullets with sunglasses at night drinking some beer. I'm sure it's a pretty good time, let's be honest. So what, like, from that perspective, like what are you guys doing to, you have multiple organizations, you have local events. Like, I get that you're trying to market and get in front of more and more people, and, like, I guess, how are you trying to then grow the sport on top of it? Is it just hopes that, hey, once we break that barrier to entry, people will love it? Because, like, hey, as you said, you've never met someone who doesn't like it after they get past that barrier. But what else can you do, including those live streams, those personalities, right? I'm sure the guys pulling the tractors too. I'm sure there's a couple characters out there. Like, how do you lean into that aspect of all of this to help grow? Because, right, like the NBA, we were talking about it before we got on. I'm more interested in the people than I am the actual game half the time. I'm more interested in the trade deadline, which is like the saddest thing about the sport, than the actual games half the time. So how do you get all the stuff around it to help build up the actual sport itself?
yeah. So the what's the Netflix series with about the F1?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Drive to Survive. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and then I've seen like the golf one, and
Yep. Full
obviously those,
swing. Yep.
that's a whole nother level of truck and tractor pulling. But you know, the personalities and the storylines in tractor pulling. If we ever were on Netflix, it would blow those two out of the water because
I
it's
legitimately
so,
believe that too.
no, it's so authentic and so American. And the thing that's interesting, I wanted to share with you earlier on the question you asked, like the people that are the competitors of this sport are all very successful individuals. Like they're business people. They don't tractor pull for a living. It's what they do for fun. But like you have ultra successful people from all walks of the country, literally from, you know, I don't know how many states, but all across the geography of the U.S. that are successful. They're just successful people, and you get a lot of successful self-made people together that are competing against one another. Well, none of them like to lose, so you can imagine it's not a friendly environment when people lose. And I mean, everyone's good sports and
Of
people get
course.
along, but it's you know, the storylines are very easy to sell. If we ever one day when we get to that, that's like the simplest thing, honestly. The other thing I want to add, you know, this is a cultural experience, and truck and tractor pulling. A couple of things that make it extremely unique from other sports, and these are all sports across the globe. You know, it's the only sport in the world where there really is no practice. And when I say there is no practice, you have you know, in other motorsports, and like obviously motorsports is a better illustration because it's man and vehicle. So in other motorsports, you're not pulling an object. So you're pulling a sled. You know, these sleds are a whole another piece of marvelous equipment, but basically the sled is where you start and you pull it the length of the track, and there's a moving a weight box that moves with you and eventually stops you at the other end. Well, a guy can't really go purchase one of those. They can go purchase them, but you can't predict how they're going to set those sleds up because, you know, the playing surfaces are always different. You're pulling on dirt, which is a whole nother topic I get to in a second, but like you can't simulate that. You can't practice and get better at that because you don't know what that sled operator is going to do. And then you have dirt, the natural dirt that you're competing on. So a lot of other sports, again, asphalt's asphalt. I don't care if you're in Canada, or you're in Florida, or you're in California, asphalt's asphalt, right? And then, but dirt, depending on where you are geographically, like it's different. I mean, it's different, and there's different weather conditions. Weather conditions play into the dirt. How the track is built play into it. Like it's very. Once you take a deep dive, the amount of skill it takes to be really good at competing one of these is really remarkable, and compared to other sports because again, you can't practice. You can practice, but you're not. Only thing you're going to find out is if your vehicle runs. You're not going to really get better at it. All you got to do is the way you get better is just to compete and keep good notes, right? So that makes it very unique. One person goes at a time. I think that's maybe the only sport besides bowling that exists like that, where you're just competing one at a time. So that makes it pretty interesting. And then the other part, and we'll get to the real money gaming here shortly, but when you got one person going at a time and you have a pool of, multiple competitors, it lends itself well to betting. So I always say this, but go to an average tractor pulling event, I'd say 75% of the people in the stands, it may be a French fry, it may be $1, but they're sitting with their buddy beside them because there's a 2-minute break between each competitor. Like, hey, what is this guy going to go past 300 feet? Is he going to go like? It just lends itself well to that environment. So that obviously is something that we're excited about, as we get going with that. But it's the fan engagement piece, and again, the power, just like the pure horsepower. There's this class called the Unlimited Tractors, which is the most powerful class horsepower-wise in all of motorsports. These tractors have 4, 5, and even 6 engines all running together at the same time. And like when you stand beside these things, like it rattles your brain. And when someone comes there and feels that in person, like it just kind of sells itself.
That is pretty sweet. Yeah, I can't say I've seen that, but that does sound pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to drink a couple beers and watch that, man. There's also something about that.
I'm sure you can definitely find a cooler if you make it a tractor pull. If not, call me. I can tell you where one is.
I appreciate that, buddy. I'm actually to do that next time I get out there. But no, and I think it's just such a cool way that you've thought about this sport, right? I've seen it 100 times. My dad used to pull. As I told you, my cousins, shout out Scott Rasile, Jersey Dirty. Go check it out. They do some really cool shit. But like, I've seen this a lot, more so again than your average podcast host, let's say. And I just think it's really cool the way you're looking at it, from trying to take what is, again, from my perspective, a very local kind of, just a thing you do with your buddies, right? To then try and bring that to a national type of stage. And as you said, there's those 2 minutes in between. That was going to be one of my questions too. Like, I'm sure you're familiar with minor league baseball, the Savannah Bananas, everything that they're doing with live events. Like what can you guys do within those?
Savannah Bananas do. I don't.
Dude, yeah, there you go. That's a Google search for you. That's a Google search for you. Enjoy that one, man. Is there
anything that can translate to tractor pulling with the Savannah?
Absolutely. No, 100%. That's why I brought it up, right? Like they're a minor league baseball team, and they've pretty much reinvented the sport of baseball. It's like it's an independent league, right? So they're just trying to get people in the seats. They're just trying to do stuff, right? You can come watch the baseball, but they also do just fun things, like someone will walk to the plate with the bat on fire and try and get a hit, right? Like they do like crazy shit like that. So highly, highly suggest you check that out. But like in between innings, right? Like the team dances on the field in between pitches. Like they have like a dance routine they do between pitches. Like they do so much stuff that is literally just about fan engagement. And right, so that was going to be one of my questions. I've been to these events where sometimes the truck breaks down, man. Sometimes you're sitting there for 10 minutes waiting for that thing to get moved and see what's wrong, and you got to clean shit up, and like so like there's that aspect. So I'll let you do that Google search. Maybe we'll come back around in a year, see what else.
Maybe me and you can go check a game out.
Savannah, Georgia.
There's probably a cooler somewhere at the Savannah Banana games too, right?
I think we could find a couple of those there too, man. I don't think that'd be too crazy.
Cool.
But no, like from the real money gaming, the actual betting aspect of it, like how are you guys looking at it? Because again, like this is probably not an easy sport to book, right? Like how are you guys looking at it more from a peer-to-peer perspective, as you said, you and your buddy betting French fries, or how are you guys looking at it to get that extra added level of fan engagement involved when it's a really, I don't want to say a crapshoot, but like there's only so much information. It's really difficult to start setting lines and saying like, oh, we think this guy is so much better than this person, and like kind of doing it that way. How are you guys tackling that aspect of it?
Yeah, we're really excited about the product that we're coming out with, and there'll be more announcements on it, Michael, the next coming weeks. I don't want to reveal more than I'm supposed to. I don't want to get in trouble by anybody, but the best way, it'll be a unique form of gaming. Like there's nothing else like this in existence, which is exciting, potentially for us. But the best way I can describe it is it'd be like taking horse racing and a DraftKings daily fantasy, and if they got married to each other, that's what we'd be looking at.
That's sweet. All right. I think I could figure that out. That's pretty cool. Because you have to, there's so many different events, right? You want to keep people engaged, not just for the biggest event at the end or in the middle or at the beginning. You want to try and keep them engaged throughout, keep them there, keep them excited, keep them going. If you give enough
definitely.
people.
It's, I always draw back to horse racing because that's kind of what got me into this. But the average session of tractor pulling, you have 6 to 7 different categories or classes. So it's like 6 or 7 horse races. Now they do take a little longer, but they are very, very highly competitive in terms of very rarely is there just going to be a runaway like heavy favorite in anything because not there's a favorite to always win, but it's in a category of the mini rod class is probably one of the most popular classes, and the average mini rod there's probably 20 competitors, and literally any of the 20 just throw them in a hat. You don't know who's going to win or who's going to be the top 2 or 3. So that really lends itself well to exciting fan engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah, long shots, baby. That's what we
Yeah,
like.
everyone's a long shot.
Exactly. Let me make turn my $100 into 10 grand. How about that?
Yep, yep.
That's what we're looking to do here,
Now
right? That'll keep people engaged for sure,
now you're
man. I like that. And
Yeah.
and I will say, my cousin Scott Rasile, again, one more time, Jersey Dirty. He's the favorite. I'll just say that kid cleans up. So shout out
Okay.
to my cousin for what he does.
You might have to keep an eye on him. Then he might be excluded from the list of options.
No, I'll send you his contact information. You guys can catch up after this. That should be good.
Fair
But
enough.
I guess
What
from
if he should let you drive it, then it wouldn't be the favorite, right?
No. I'm a spectator in this sport for sure. I like hearing the engines. I like feeling the rumble. Like I like all that. So now I'll sit on the sidelines again with my cooler, our cooler, and we'll go from there. Because you can't drink and drive, man. We're not trying to do that. So I've already had too many. Let's just say
I don't
that.
know. As back to the personalities of pulling, I'm not going to say that a pull or two don't have a couple drinks before they get to people, but we probably don't need to put that on camera ever.
No,
but it's just genuine American people that are just out competing with
nothing wrong with that.
$500,000 vehicles against other guys.
Exactly. That's the other thing, right? As you said, this is a yacht. This is a lake house. This is somebody's. They're like, again, all the people that I know that do this own businesses, work in businesses that are successful, right? Like they're not just, this isn't their job. This is the thing that they love to do. This is
club membership.
They're sinking dollars into this too, right? It's not like 5-10 grand here or there. Like no. These trucks have been worked on for the last 10 years. They're perfecting this shit. Like it's
sure.
So it's a really cool to watch it from that perspective. So as you said, like these people, they're highly competitive. They want to win. Like they're doing this for fun, but like winning is fun, right? Like that's the cool part.
You're selling the sport. You don't even need me on this podcast.
Hey man,
so every future guest, you're going to tell them about how badass tractor pulling is.
I'm going to send them your way. Say, hey, this guy needs a couple bucks. I think it's going to be worth your investment money. You give me a cut and we all call it a day.
I think you're already a co-founder.
Look at that, man. Look at that. All it took was about 32 minutes. Gotta love it, Chase. So what's next, right? You got the live streaming, you got the gaming. Like obviously you're trying to, market the sport, market your company, doing a lot of that stuff. But like you're not looking 5 days into the future. You're looking 5 years, 10 years in the future. What are evolutions that you can see within this sport that you want to have a hand in that will help just continue the progress of what you guys are building and get that momentum so that it's a nice hockey stick on the way up to people loving and caring about the sport, not just around the country locally, but again, on this more national level where people are like, hell yeah, I can't wait to watch the 4th of July fucking extravaganza. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, no, there's dreams and ambition. And, before I get to that question, like me personally, if a personal goal of mine or a moment of, we've made it or whatever you want to call it is if one day somehow, some way that people, and, we've talked about a number of times, this is a hobby. If somehow this becomes a job for someone where they can go like do it for a living, like they do in NHRA or a NASCAR or whatever, I think that would be the ultimate shining moment for myself personally, as a bigger picture. But, you look at other sports that have kind of popped up, this blueprint's been done before where niche and emerging sports have kind of gotten big. I mean, right now, UFC is huge. Like it's arguably as big as anything, but, there's a time and when Dana White, a lot of people may not know the story. If you don't, look it up, the Dana White and UFC backstory of basically how they're bankrupt and he got in and kind of revitalized them. And, I think it was probably around 2000. Don't quote me on that, but go on this trajectory where they kind of rebrand and, they didn't change the sport. It's still the same. I'm sure they probably changed some rules, but all they did was just kind of change the message of it. Right. And look what it is now. I mean, every bar in America on a Saturday night is jam packed for UFC, on TV. And I'm not a UFC. I don't really watch that much of it, but obviously that's an example of what can happen if with the right presentation, the right information. Tractor pulling will never, I hope it gets there, but it probably will never get to that. But, that's one example. Then you look at the recent emergence of pickleball, like within the last couple of years. I mean, post-COVID, a big thing that's happened in that sport is you've had a lot of mainstream personalities and athletes that have gotten behind it, and now all of a sudden it's an emerging sport that people easily relate to because it's anyone can play it. But my point is, that doesn't even have an audience. They just got people behind it and like, look what we have here. And I think for motorsports in general, and I love motorsports personally, outside basketball, I'm a gearhead. But NASCAR's kind of changed, and depending on who you ask, like some of their change hasn't probably been for the best, numbers wise. I don't want to speak to this, but I think the general consensus is NASCAR has probably done, if it's done anything the last 20 years, it's gone the opposite. Like it's not on a rising now. It's still the most popular mainstream motorsport, but it's kind of not elevated itself. NHRA drag racing, they have 4 pro national classes that they have a contract with Fox, FS1. They're on TV all the time, and I think those guys have done a great job. Again, they haven't really like just taken off and gone to a new audience because probably they don't have to either. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for motorsport. Our sport is a lot of people that are gearhead type people. Some of these other sports, and even F1 somewhat, have kind of got regulated to the point where it's not as mechanical as it once was, where it was like the man vehicle versus man and vehicle. Like there's a lot of computer automation and stuff like that. Like truck and tractor pulling is 100% a manual sport. There's restrictions against computer. And I don't want to get off subject, but like basically in drag racing, if you have a good IT guy, you can be a really good racer. Just call it what it is. That's kind of where that sport is. Tractor pulling, that's not allowed. So it's a very mechanical, man vehicle sport, not computer sport. So I think there's opportunity for tractor pulling in the motorsports in the gearhead arena because of that, and then adding to it all the other things because it's very unique. And again, I think if we just do a good job storytelling and getting the right people interested in it, I think it kind of will take care of itself. But it won't happen overnight, and the bar is set pretty low. Not to pick on anybody in truck and tractor pulling, but it's set pretty low. So if we do anything, we're probably doing more than what's been done. But I think there's a ton of passion, a ton of energy from everyone involved to kind of push this to another level if we can.
That's awesome, man. Get the right people behind it. Keep pushing that boulder. Eventually, you'll get where it needs to go, man. So kudos and congratulations, you guys.
Especially you as co-founder.
Hey, man, yeah, that'll be easy. This mustache, dude, just put my like silhouette on some pictures. People will
Is that real?
Bro. Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Okay.
Are you kidding? Come on.
I didn't aim to
incredible.
You. I was just asking. I was really
far
jealous.
from it. It looks good, dude. You can't insult me. When I have this on, no one can insult me. Don't you worry. I stand above men. But no, man, in sincerity, I think this is awesome. Really appreciate your time tonight. Like, just again, the passion. One of my favorite things why I love this show so much is because I get to talk to people who are passionate about something. Very clearly, you're passionate not only about the sport, but making the sport bigger, making the sport better, getting it to a place where, as you said, if somebody can say, "I do tractor pulling professionally," and that is their job, that is their ability to make money and provide for their family. That's pretty damn cool. So let's get them there, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then anyone that is interested in truck and tractor pulling, our platform is Full Pull. It's fullpull.us. We have an app that's available in all, app and Google Play stores. It's just a Full Pull app. You can keep up with all of our live streaming via the app or our website, as long with our Real Money Gaming platform that'll be launched and announced here in a few weeks. So season kind of really gets kicked off May 31st. I think it's the first national event. It's a Friday night, and that's kind of the one-stop shop for pulling content and information. And obviously in all the main social channels, just search Full Pull and you'll see our presence. We're a media company, a streaming company, and a gaming company, driving the sport of truck and tractor pulling. So, and if anyone goes to one of these events and buys a ticket and does not like the ticket, does not like the event, send us a message. Full Pull will refund you your ticket.
I love it. Appreciate that.
You gotta go. You actually gotta go.
Yeah, I'm going.
For sure. Cool.
I'm going. My son's old enough now. We gotta just put headphones on him, right? That's all. That's easy.
I like it.
It's awesome, dude.
You have a crew pass waiting on you anytime you want to come, Michael.
Buddy, I can't wait. And some beer. Really, keep that. I'll take the pass, but just make sure the beer's there. We should be good.
I like it.
I love it, dude. And then so the podcast one more time. Where can people? What's the name of that? Where can people find that?
Yeah, it's the No Practice Podcast. It's we do it live. It's every other Wednesday. Actually, I have one coming up in 2 days. I don't know when our podcast will be revealed, but every other Wednesday. You can watch it on the Full Pull YouTube channel or a Full Pull Facebook page. It's also available on Spotify, Apple Play, all the major podcast platforms. It's you'll if you listen, you'll be entertained, and we do a good job of, I think, getting a lot of the personalities in the sport, as guests. And same thing I told you about, just storytelling. Everything's there. We just got to present it to everyone. So No Practice Podcast. Subscribe and like.
I love it. I'll put a link to that. I'll put a link to the website down there as well, so people can check that out. But no, man, this has been great. Chase Richardson, CEO, co-founder, Full Pull Entertainment. Time's the only thing we don't get more of, so I appreciate you giving me some of yours and the audience giving us some of theirs. But other than that, man, hope you have a great rest of your night. Appreciate it.
You too. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, everybody.